Below is an in-depth chapter-by-chapter summary of Single on Purpose. John Kim, known as the Angry Therapist, opened Single on Purpose with a raw confession. After a painful divorce, he realized he had never truly been single. Having jumped from relationship to relationship since his 20s, Kim was forced to confront his codependency and lack of self-connection post-divorce. He shares how this heartbreak became a catalyst for rebuilding his relationship with himself, moving from alone and disconnected to alone and fulfilled. The introduction sets the book's premise. Singlehood isn't a punishment or a waiting room for love. It's a purposeful journey to prioritize self-love and personal growth. Kim challenges the societal equation of being alone with being lonely, arguing that everyone, whether single, dating, or partnered, needs to cultivate a strong relationship with themselves. His signature self-help in a shot glass approach, blunt, relatable, and free of jargon, promises practical tools to own your shit, break toxic patterns, and live authentically. Kim shares his personal journey, from eating donuts in despair to finding joy in barbells and a motorcycle, inspiring listeners to embark on their own path to self-discovery. The introduction hooks listeners with humor, e.g., his quip about arguing with his parents and a promise of empowerment, regardless of relationship status. Chapter 1. Why Are You Single? Kim begins by confronting the stigma of singlehood, asking listeners to reflect on why they're single, not as a judgment, but as a starting point for growth. He shares his own story of being single post-divorce, feeling like a failure in a society that glorifies coupledom. Kim argues that being single isn't a flaw, it's an opportunity to redefine your life. He identifies common reasons for singlehood: breakups, fear of commitment, or prioritizing career, and emphasizes that none are wrong. The chapter introduces the concept of being single on purpose, meaning choosing to focus on yourself intentionally, not just by default. Kim offers practical exercises, like journaling about past relationships, to uncover patterns, e.g., codependency or people-pleasing. He shares client stories, like a woman who stayed single to pursue art after years of toxic relationships, showing how singlehood can be liberating. The chapter challenges listeners to shift their mindset, viewing singlehood as a season of self-investment, not a problem to fix. Kim's blunt humor, calling out swiping on apps like a zombie, keeps the tone engaging. Chapter 2. The Mirror. This chapter urges listeners to face themselves honestly, using the metaphor of a mirror to reflect on their true selves. Kim recounts staring at himself post-divorce, feeling like a stranger after years of defining himself through relationships. He explains that self-love starts with self-awareness, which requires confronting uncomfortable truths, like insecurities or unhealthy habits. Kim provides a 6-step process for self-reflection: accept past relationships as expired, identify patterns, set non-negotiables, forgive yourself, embrace your flaws, and commit to growth. He shares how he identified his pattern of seeking validation through partners, a realization that sparked change. The chapter includes exercises, like writing a letter to your younger self, to foster self-compassion. Kim uses client examples, such as a man who discovered his fear of rejection drove his dating choices, to illustrate the power of self-awareness. The tone is empathetic yet direct, urging listeners to chill in your shit as fertilizer for growth, a phrase he uses to emphasize embracing discomfort for transformation. Chapter 3. The Expired Relationship. Kim tackles the pain of letting go, arguing that relationships have expiration dates, and clinging to them prolongs suffering. He shares his struggle to move on from his ex-wife, replaying highlight reels of their best moments until he forced himself to see the whole documentary. The fights, the disconnect. The chapter offers a powerful mantra: closure doesn't require the other person. Kim explains that closure is an internal process of accepting the end, setting boundaries, and taking ownership of your role. He provides steps to move through heartbreak, acknowledge the relationship's death, respect its expiration date, cut contact, and focus on self-healing. Kim recounts a client who obsessively checked her ex's social media until she blocked him, reclaiming her peace. The chapter is raw, with Kim admitting his own mistakes, like texting his ex in weakness, to show that healing is messy but possible. Listeners are encouraged to set crystal-clear boundaries and avoid holding two hostages by lingering in the past. This chapter resonates with anyone stuck on what-ifs, offering hope through action. Chapter 4. The Self-Date. Kim introduces the concept of self-dates as a cornerstone of self-love, urging listeners to spend intentional time with themselves. He shares how he started taking himself to coffee shops, movies, and hikes, initially feeling awkward, but eventually finding joy in his own company. The chapter argues that self-dates build emotional, physical, and spiritual fitness, fostering a sense of wholeness. Kim provides practical ideas. Try a new hobby like painting, go for a solo walk, or cook a favorite meal. He recounts a client who took up salsa dancing, discovering confidence that transformed her dating life. The chapter emphasizes doing things for the joy of the process, not outcomes. Quoting, "Doing things for the outcome disconnects you from yourself." Kim's humor shines through, like joking about his disastrous attempt at yoga, making the advice relatable. Listeners are encouraged to schedule regular self-dates, treating them as non-negotiable, to cultivate inner peace and self-acceptance. This chapter is uplifting, showing that singlehood can be vibrant and fulfilling. Chapter 5. The Body Engine. Kim likens the body to a four-piston engine, where movement fuels confidence, sensuality, and self-love. He shares his transformation through CrossFit and weightlifting post-divorce, finding strength that boosted his self-esteem. The chapter argues that physical activity isn't about aesthetics, but about connecting with your body. Kim explains four pistons: movement, e.g., dancing, sports, nutrition, rest, and mindfulness. He provides practical tips, like starting with 10-minute walks, or trying a fun activity like kickboxing. Kim recounts a client who joined a running group, overcoming body shame and finding community. The chapter emphasizes that movement ignites your sexy side, enhancing your presence in dating and life. Kim's tone is encouraging, admitting his own struggles with body image to normalize the journey. Listeners are urged to fall in love with movement, not for others' approval, but for their own joy. This chapter inspires action, showing how physical health supports emotional growth. Chapter 6. The Patterns. This chapter dives into breaking toxic relationship patterns, which Kim defines as repeated behaviors that sabotage connection. He shares his pattern of codependency, always prioritizing partners over himself, which led to resentment. Kim explains how patterns stem from childhood, past relationships, or societal expectations, using his Korean-American upbringing as an example, where he felt pressure to please others. The chapter offers a process to identify patterns, reflect on past relationships, note recurring issues, e.g., jealousy, avoidance, and trace their roots. Kim provides tools to break patterns, like therapy, journaling, or setting boundaries. He shares a client's story of a man who kept dating unavailable women, realizing it mirrored his distant mother, and how therapy helped him choose healthier partners. Kim's bluntness, calling out bullshit excuses for staying stuck, motivates change. The chapter empowers listeners to take responsibility for their patterns, showing that awareness and action lead to healthier relationships. Chapter 7. The Non-Negotiables. Kim emphasizes setting non-negotiables, core values and boundaries that guide your life and relationships. He shares how he lacked these pre-divorce, leading to compromising his identity. Post-divorce, he defined non-negotiables like honesty, emotional availability, and mutual respect. The chapter guides listeners to identify their own. List what you won't tolerate, e.g., disrespect, infidelity, and what you need, e.g., trust, communication. Kim recounts a client who set a non-negotiable of no substance abuse, ending a toxic relationship but finding peace. The chapter stresses that non-negotiables aren't rigid demands, but a reflection of self-worth. Kim uses humor, joking about his old non-negotiable of "must like my dog," to keep it light. Listeners are encouraged to write their non-negotiables and revisit them regularly. This chapter is empowering, teaching that boundaries protect your growth and attract healthier connections. Chapter 8. The Loneliness. Kim tackles the universal fear of loneliness, arguing it's not the enemy, but a signal to reconnect with yourself. He shares nights alone post-divorce, feeling empty until he embraced solitude as a chance to grow. The chapter distinguishes loneliness a feeling from being alone a state, offering strategies to navigate it. Practice self-soothing, e.g., meditation, build a support network, and pursue passions. Kim recounts a client who feared loneliness but found fulfillment through volunteering, shifting her perspective. He emphasizes that loneliness is temporary, and that self-dates and hobbies can transform it into empowerment. Kim's vulnerability, admitting to crying alone in his apartment, makes the chapter relatable. The tone is compassionate, urging listeners to see loneliness as a teacher, not a punishment. This chapter provides hope, showing that singlehood can be a rich, meaningful season. Chapter 9. The Dating Game. Kim redefines dating as an extension of self-love, not a quest to complete yourself. He shares his post-divorce dating missteps, like swiping on apps to fill voids, contrasted with later dates where he showed up authentically. The chapter argues that dating should align with your growth, not derail it. Kim offers tips: approach dates with curiosity, not desperation. Be clear about your non-negotiables, and prioritize your own fulfillment. He recounts a client who stopped dating to focus on her career, later attracting a partner who respected her independence. Kim's humor shines, poking fun at awkward Tinder dates, making the advice accessible. The chapter emphasizes working on yourself while dating, quoting, "You have to work even more on yourself when dating." Listeners are encouraged to date intentionally, seeing it as a chance to learn, not a race to coupledom. This chapter is practical, redefining dating for single on-purpose individuals. Chapter 10. The Closure. Kim closes with a powerful exploration of closure, redefining it as an internal journey, not a conversation with an ex. He shares how he sought closure from his ex-wife, but realized it came from accepting the relationship's end and forgiving himself. The chapter outlines steps to find closure: accept the relationship's expiration, process emotions through journaling or therapy, and build a new narrative for your life. Kim recounts a client who wrote a letter to her ex never sent to release pain, finding freedom. He emphasizes that closure is about peace, not answers, and that real love holds up a mirror to your growth. Kim's tone is reflective, sharing his joy in finding love with his partner Vanessa after closure. The chapter inspires listeners to lay past relationships to rest, using closure as a bridge to a vibrant present. The book ends with Kim's Single on Purpose playlist, a personal touch that invites listeners to celebrate their journey.